We're back with the 2 Minute Drill podcast here on All Mixed Up Radio. The two grizzled radio veterans, Jim Monaghan and Chris Swendeman, back with you this week. Chris, I want to go back to something that we spoke about last week briefly. We mentioned the college football and name, image, likeness, NIL,
Mhm.
and the transfer portal, and how much it had really changed the face of college football. Well, it looks like something's happening that really may affect baseball as well. And I don't know if you heard this or not, but this past week, a federal judge ruled that a player's time in junior college will not count towards his overall years of NCAA eligibility, which right now is 4 playing seasons in 5 years. You hear that? Well, he's a
Right.
redshirting a year.
Yep.
So that's what you get there. There is some speculation that with regard to college baseball, it could turn some NCAA programs into a minor league. And we're talking the big programs here.
Right. But how crazy is that to think about that you could play 2 years of JUCO and basically these JUCOs are acting as the minor leagues to set them up for the big school, the big name schools.
Mhm.
It's absolutely crazy where this foundation may go.
I'm going to the ABCA in about a week and a half or so. That's the American Baseball Coaches Association. It's a meeting that's being held this year in Washington, D.C., and it covers the gamut from youth sports all the way up to major league coaches. It's a great time. So I'm hoping to get some more information as at that convention with regard to what's going on with this. Let's stay with baseball. We have a little bit more clarity with what's going on with the Yankees with the signing of Goldschmidt and Bellinger. I like both moves, but Bellinger I like more than the Goldschmidt move, Chris.
I do. I agree with you. I like both moves. I'm with you on the Bellinger over Goldschmidt. They did need somebody, whether, it be looking past this year. I think the Goldschmidt is a good gap fill for this year. And then whether they go free agency next year, maybe Vladdy Jr. is going to be out there, speculative, of course, or maybe, we've talked about this off air. Is it somebody like Ben Rice? I don't see that actually happening, though.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Rice. I'm really not. Certainly not as an everyday player, but maybe this is. Goldschmidt may be that little stopgap move for a year to allow Rice to develop a little bit more. The outfield looks as if it's going to be Jason Dominguez in left, Bellinger in center, and Aaron Judge in right. That's where Judge belongs. It's a lot easier for him to play. Certainly, he's going to be a better defensive outfielder than Soto was, and I don't think they'll lose anything with Bellinger. He's a very
No,
good defensive
he
outfielder.
is.
I'm not sold on Dominguez either as an
No,
everyday player.
I am not sold on Dominguez as an everyday player. He's not a good fielder at all. He lacks the skills and the versatility to be out there. I think he's going to be a liability. And I think before all is said and done and the free agency wraps up, there are some really good outfielders still out there. And I think the Yankees will probably address that before long.
I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen anything happen with Alonso yet, nor have we seen anything happen with Alex Bregman.
Right. Both of those are highly coveted, but I think maybe they're in a weird spot because first base keeps getting gobbled. All the teams that need first baseman are getting them, either acquiring them via trade. I know Nate Lowe from Texas just got traded last night to Washington, and Goldschmidt signs with the Yankees, so that takes the Yankees out of it. So there's not as much market. I think Bregman's got a better chance right now, maybe to sign before Alonso does.
Meanwhile, really early this morning, National Baseball columnist Jeff Passan was up and tweeting, does this guy ever sleep? Talking about how the Mets had come to an agreement, 3-year deal with Sean Manaea. I think that stabilizes or at least helps stabilize the Mets rotation.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a good get. Would I have liked to see the Mets go maybe gamble on like a Walker Buehler like the Red Sox did? I think that may have been maybe the more expensive route, but I think Walker has the talent, if he can come back from those two major surgeries, to be a possible anchor for the Mets. I don't feel like the Mets have an anchor to their starting pitching. And that's what worries me when you invest all that money in Soto and then you kind of go at the cheaper route for your pitching. Now you're like, you got to find a balance here.
For me, Bueller is a big if for the Red Sox. A big, big if. I know it's just a 1 year gamble, but it's a little over $20 million, if I'm not mistaken. But he is coming off some serious injuries. I don't know if that's going to work or not.
Well, now you're talking almost 2 years removed is really, I know, Jim, you know this better than I do. When I guess everything really starts to heal after, that first season and a half, which Walker was coming back from this past year. So given a full year now to rehabilitate, maybe this is the year when it comes back full circle for him and he gets back into form.
Turning to football, let's start with the Jets. That story that was in The Athletic some days ago about just how dysfunctional things are in Florham Park for this team. I mean, I'm reading it, Chris, and I'm like, my mind is like, how does this team even begin to function with all of this going on?
You know what the sad part is? What do they say? The line is, to every rumor there is some truth. The sad part is when I read that the Jets weren't going to make a trade. I think it was Jerry Jeudy, the wide
Hmm.
receiver for Cleveland. They didn't want to trade for him because his Madden rating wasn't high enough. If there was any other team, I would be like, who writes this stuff? With the Jets, I was like, it's just one more thing to add to the circus. And it just goes to prove it wasn't Joe Douglas. It wasn't Robert Saleh. It starts at the very tippy top. And you know what? You just don't fire an owner. Sadly for Jet fans, you're stuck with this mess.
I think Jets fans are hoping that President-elect Donald Trump takes him and makes him an ambassador again and gets him out of the front office for a while.
It's the only hope that Jet fans could hang their hats on at this point.
That's what happened with the Yankees.
Oh yeah,
George Steinbrenner
absolutely.
was meddling left and right, and finally
Yep,
the commissioner, George, you need to go away for a little while, based on some
absolutely.
election hijinks. And look what happened when
Gene Michael
baseball
took
people,
over.
yeah.
Gene Michael was the drug. Gene Michael set up that entire Yankees team because George just had to keep his nose out of it. And this is what needs to happen with the Jets. Right now, they are just an absolute dumpster fire.
Yankee fans tend to look back on things with blinders. Well, if George were here, he'd do this. Or if George were here, he'd do that. It was pretty chaotic. I covered the Yankees for a little while during all of that period, and like you never knew what was going to happen with all of that.
A great series. If you ever want to learn what mayhem was like on the Yankees, they did a special on Peacock about the 1990 Yankees. It's a three-part series. It will blow your mind at just how dysfunctional that team was. And with all the players George tried to bring in, and then finally they got some stability. They touch on the whole, George had to go away thing, and then they bring in Michael, and that's when you see the turn. But when George was running things, you never knew what was going to happen.
And then Aaron Rodgers comes out a day or so ago, and he's surprised by how many leaks there are in the locker room to the media. I'm like, well, Aaron, welcome to New York. Three daily newspapers, all of the television stations, two full-time sports talk radio stations. Everybody and their mother and brother and sister has a podcast. Hello, here
Hey,
we
party
are.
of us.
I mean, really? You're
Right.
surprised?
No, this isn't Green Bay anymore, Aaron. Get used to New York media. It's a lot more focused. It's a lot more in your face. You're going to have mics wherever you go in your face waiting for a sound clip. So, he's never one to watch his tongue. So you would think he would thrive in this because this is exactly what he wants. But, be careful what you wish for. You just may get it.
Speaking of being in your face, Giants fans this
Really.
weekend, the Colts and Giants at MetLife Stadium. What do they fly on the banner this week in the stadium?
If anything, I would fly. We have the number one pick because that's what you can hang your hat on at this point, guys. I know a lot of diehard Giant fans, dear friends of mine, that are all just hoping, coach, GM, both gone, just wipe them out and start over at this point. And especially if you have the number one pick, you're either going to stick with your core that you have now, or you're going to wipe them out and start over and rebuild with that first overall pick. And I think that's what you got to do at this point.
I need you to take a deep breath right now. Are you ready?
Woosah.
All right.
Okay.
5 weeks ago,
Right.
the Rangers are 12, 4,
Uh,
and 1. They were out of today's game with the Devils pretty much from the moment the puck dropped in the first period. A 5-0 shutout.
yep.
Chris, what happened? What has happened to this team?
This team, I don't even have words for what is going on with this team. They took the regular season championship last year. They were the number one overall seed going into the NHL playoffs. 2 games away from the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and they just ran into a juggernaut of the Florida Panthers, who wound up taking the cup. This team, you talk about dumpster fire, they have nothing redeeming. I have been a fan of the Rangers for the better part of 40 plus years. I will tell you this, Jim. I have never watched a more depressing game than today. That is not, you know, coach speak. That is not any. It is just a deplorable what is going on with this team right now. I don't know where it starts. I don't think you can necessarily blame the coach. Laviolette, a year and a half in, he really lost the team that fast. It's something in that locker room. And until Chris Drury, the GM, decides to, maybe trade a couple more players, I don't know what the answer is, because today it wasn't even a lack of effort. It was just they didn't care. And you could just see it on the ice. There's just zero effort, and something big has to change here.
Yeah, over the past 5 weeks, what are they, 4-13?
Oh, it's an absolute disgrace.
It is. And on that note, we'll wrap up this week's 2 Minute Drill podcast with me, Jim Monaghan, and Chris Swendeman here on All Mixed Up Radio.
Have a good one, Jim. Enjoy the weekend and happy holidays.
And make sure you like and subscribe for more. You just press that little button right down
Exactly.
there. Exactly.
Just
How easy
press
can
it
it
real
be?
quick.